golf balls right in this gravity. Anybody want to give me odds?
That was an excerpt from astronaut Steve Austin's famous transmission to Earth during his historic walk on the moon several years ago. It was the voice of a courageous explorer, a man dedicated to the pursuit of man's knowledge and the expansion of his horizons. And it was for those very reasons that Steve Austin was piloting the experimental aircraft that exploded so devastatingly on the Nevada salt flats today, leaving Colonel Steve Austin a broken shell of a man, so badly injured his doctors say he won't be alive in the morning. Let us all say a silent prayer for Colonel Austin tonight, a true American hero, a man history will never forget.
You know, there's a very strong chance Austin won't be alive in the morning, Oscar.
It's your job to make those other doctors liars, Rudy.
We're in a top-security government medical center, where high-ranking Oscar Goldman and top scientist Rudy Wells have been listening to one of the many broadcasts devoted to Steve Austin's tragedy.
Is your team all set to go?
They're scrubbing now. The plastics are already in the operating room, along with the microcircuitry and the other hardware. Oscar, we've had the technology to do this for some time now. Every scientific variable has been computed and taken into account, except for one thing.
The human factor.
Right. We still don't know the extent of the psychological effects this operation will have on a human being, assuming the patient even survives.
But if he does, Rudy, we'll be witnessing one of the scientific achievements of the century, the birth of the world's first Bionic Man.
For 14 hours, Rudy Wells and his team of highly trained specialists painstakingly labor over the battered and broken body of Colonel Steve Austin, implementing scientific principles and technological procedures never before tested on a human being, and overseeing each and every phase of the incredibly intricate operation is a vigilant Oscar Goldman, silently spectating from the observation room. It is not until 7 days later that Steve Austin opens his eyes to groggily wonder where he is, without the slightest inkling that one of the eyes he just opened is not his own.
Am I dreaming, or is everyone in heaven as beautiful as you?
You're not dreaming and you're not in heaven, Colonel, but thanks for the compliment. Now, take your medication. There you are.
Thank you, nurse. Could you leave us alone now?
Who are you?
My name's Oscar Goldman, and this is Dr. Rudy Wells. He headed the surgical team that worked on you.
Colonel Austin?
I don't know how you guys managed it, but thanks for pulling me through. I was sure I was a goner on the way down.
How do you feel?
A little dragged out and groggy, but otherwise great. Like I've never been better.
That's exactly right, Colonel Austin. You never have been better. You're better now than you ever were before.
What's that supposed to mean?
In saving your life, Colonel Austin, we had to make some adjustments in your physical makeup.
Adjustments?
Improvements would be a better word. You're now faster, stronger, more durable than you ever were.
Take a look at your right hand.
It's my hand, so what?
Move the fingers.
I don't get it. I see the fingers moving, but it doesn't feel like I'm moving them.
You are and you're not. The nerve impulses from your brain are being relayed via microcircuitry and mini transistors.
Wait a minute. It's not just my fingers. My whole arm feels this way. Just what did you guys do to me?
We saved your life the only way possible. A way that only became possible this year, thanks to recent breakthroughs in technology.
What sort of technology?
Bionics, Colonel Austin. We have used advanced scientific technique to duplicate what your own flesh and blood used to do.
Used to do?
Your injuries were extremely grave, Colonel. You lost your right arm and both your legs, along with your left eye.
You mean this arm I've got now?
It's bionic, as are your legs and your eye.
We don't expect you to adjust to this all at once. After all...
I don't want any part of any of it. You should have let me die in that plane. I'm getting out of here.
No, Austin, you must stay in your bed.
Out of my way.
You mustn't. Your bionic legs aren't ready yet.
But like an enraged wild animal, Steve Austin leaps from his bed, his bionic arm knocking Oscar and Rudy aside like they were no more than rag dolls.
Don't be a fool, Austin. Rudy!
As Oscar Goldman rushes to a stunned Rudy's side, a bionic wild man begins to charge through the hospital corridor.
It's Colonel Austin.
He must be stopped. Where are the orderlies?
There they are.
It's no use. Those bionic limbs are too much for him.
This will stop him.
Mr. Goldman, you've got the tranquilizer gun.
Rudy said compressed air charge will put him to sleep in seconds.
The Bionic Man feels the drugged air blast against his neck, whirls angrily to face his attacker, and then...
I didn't think we'd ever stop him. You dosed him just in time, Mr. Goldman.
If you ask me, all the government's got so far for their $6 million is an uncontrollable wild man.
It is another 24 hours before Steve Austin opens his eyes again, to see Oscar Goldman again standing at his bedside.
How do you feel?
After yesterday, how come I'm not strapped to my bed?
You lost control of yourself, that's all. It was understandable under the circumstances. Besides, I don't think we could find a strap your bionic arm couldn't break through.
I know, I'm stronger, faster, better, right? But you left out one thing. I'm not a man anymore. I'm a freak.
I'm not going to debate the issue with you, Colonel. There's someone on the floor who's been begging to meet you. He's a general's son, and he's been paralyzed from the waist down. I'm afraid not even bionics can repair the damage to his spinal cord.
At that moment, the door opens and a 10-year-old boy, strapped to a wheelchair, rolls himself in.
It's all right, Bobby. Come in. Bobby, this is Steve Austin. Colonel, this is little Bobby Phillips.
Steve Austin! Oh, wow! You don't know what a thrill it is to meet you.
I'll leave you two alone now.
I've been your biggest fan, Colonel Austin, ever since that day I watched you walk on the moon on TV. Boy, that was some crash you were in last week. But Mr. Goldman says you'll be okay.
That's what he tells me.
Anyway, I was in an accident too, but I wasn't as lucky as you. Still, if one of us had to end up stuck in a wheelchair, I'm glad it was me. I'm just a little kid. I'm not nearly as important as an astronaut.
You really believe that, don't you?
Well, I've got to be going now. I'll be back later to get your autograph if that's okay.
The crippled youngster wheels himself out, leaving an ashamed Steve Austin alone with his thoughts and his self-pity. The next morning, as Oscar and Rudy walk along the corridor of the hospital's top-secret bionic wing.
So the kid did get to see him yesterday.
Yes, but we still don't know what effect, if any, that sound. What is it?
It seems to be coming from the therapy room. It sounds like a treadmill.
And as they fling open the door to the well-equipped therapeutic gym,
It's Austin.
I see. And look at the speedometer. He's running over 60 miles per hour and still accelerating.
Incredible. The bionic legs are functioning perfectly.
Rudy, I think Colonel Austin just may have decided being bionic might be worth a try after all.
and several days later, a pleased Oscar Goldman records an impressive progress report into his personal diary.
And it turned out that the session with the little boy snapped Austin out of his self-pity and back to his senses. We immediately began running tests on him, and found to our amazement his bionic strength was powerful enough to lift entire cars. His bionic legs were mighty enough to enable him to jump a full 30 feet in the air. His bionic eye was telescopic enough to read the lettering on a postage stamp from 100 yards away. Everyone on the project agrees. Our $6 million man was worth every penny he cost. But I can't help wondering what Steve Austin would say if he ever found out that Bobby Phillips could walk as well as any other boy. Because he was an actor I hired to play on Steve Austin's sympathy and common sense. It was a dirty trick, I admit, but sometimes in a crisis... End of tape for now. Signing off. Come in. Come in, Steve. You should be very proud of yourself. Your test performances have far exceeded our expectations.
That's just what I wanted to talk about, Oscar.
Oh?
I wasn't an astronaut and a test pilot for nothing. I've been around long enough to know the government doesn't invest $6 million into a man without expecting something in return.
I can't fault your logic, Colonel.
I didn't think you would. I owe you a few, don't I?
Let's just say there'll be occasional jobs we'd like you to do for us. In fact, I could brief you on your first assignment right now. What do you say, pal?
Steve Austin, reporting for duty. Pal?
Centrifuge chamber, Weingart speaking. Yes, Mr. Goldman. Colonel Austin's in the centrifuge right now with one of the astronauts in training. Now, I'll tell him right away. Colonel Austin? Colonel Austin?
What's the matter, Weingart? I was supposed to be inside in another 4 minutes.
Oscar Goldman just called. Said you should see him in his office right away. Emergency.
It's always an emergency. Well, guess I'll see.
Colonel Austin?
Yeah? What is it, Weingart?
You stepped out of that centrifuge while it was still spinning. Nobody's ever done that before, Colonel. What?
Health food.
Come on in, Steve.
Hi, Oscar. Got a problem?
Lots of people have got a problem this time, Steve. Know that portable nuclear generator our boys at Tech have been working on?
The one small enough to be carried in a van, you mean?
Well, this isn't going to be a secret for long, but a group of terrorists have hijacked it and transit to the Cape, and they've threatened to hold it for ransom.
My God, Oscar. Those nuts could cause a radiation leak without knowing it. Wipe out a few square miles.
That's the basic idea. They want to evacuate some populated area and then sit on the thing. Steve, I'd like you to find it.
But finding a piece of machinery that could be anywhere between Washington and Florida is a nearly impossible job, even for this bionic man who drives his car now in the direction of his home as...
Hey, what? Who's that in my backseat? What are you?
It's me, Colonel Austin.
Who? Toby? Toby Bennett? You're the kid whose knee was being operated on the hospital after my accident.
The accident that made you bionic.
Made me... What does that mean, Toby?
I've known about it all along, Colonel. I recognized you when they brought you in. You had no arms at all. I figured out what they did to you from talking to you and all those doctors. I saw them bringing in your new leg one day.
I'm not surprised you could figure all that out, Toby. When I was talking to you in the hospital about my moonwalk, you seem to know more about the geology of the moon than a lot of space scientists I know. But that doesn't explain why you're hiding in the backseat of my car.
I came here to ask you to get your doctor friends to make me bionic.
Why on earth would you want to do something like that?
Ever since my operation, the kids have been making fun of me because I limp and can't run as fast as they can. They don't let me play baseball or anything with them.
Look, Toby, it's no big privilege to be... Hey, quiet a sec.
This is a news bulletin from the WGBS radio newsroom. A tape-recorded press release has just been delivered to this station, as well as several others in the city, from an unidentified group who claim to have kidnapped an experimental nuclear reactor.
Holy Hannah!
The terrorists claim it is hidden somewhere in the Wilton district, and that the area should be evacuated immediately.
Wilton, that's where I live.
Here is part of the tape we received.
If $10 million in gold bullion is not delivered by jet to a ship 200 miles due east of Washington, we are going to overload the reactor and flush fallout into the atmosphere that won't disappear for years.
All right, Toby. Looks like we continue our discussion another time. I've got something to do.
No, let me help. I know where to hide anything in Wilton. I can help you find...
Bye, Toby. Here's where you get over.
And in the depressed district of the city known as Wilton, the streets are a shambles with a hurriedly organized evacuation.
Hey, you can't drive into this area. Oh, Colonel Austin, we were told you would be here.
Anyone have any leads as to where they've stashed the reactor?
No one's even thought about it yet. It's all we can do here to keep a stampede from developing out of the neighborhood.
I guess that's my job. How do you find a miniature reactor in a few square miles? How do you find a guitar string in a vat of spaghetti? Hold it. I see something. Or someone. That man over there with the metal tag on his shirt. It's the kind of identification tag used in nuclear research facilities. You forgot to take it off. Now I tail my careless friend.
The man enters a ramshackle warehouse in a part of the district that already appears completely evacuated. About time you got back. What does it look like out there?
Everyone is terrified that if the government does not accede to our demands, people whose homes are here will riot across the city.
It was a master stroke to bring the reactor here.
How is the machine, Dr. Weber? The steel walls of this old truck are keeping any radiation leaks under control, but there are parts where radiation may help rust eat through. I worry that...
He's been worried about something or other since we entered upon this enterprise. Why could we not find a nuclear expert who... What's that? Door! Someone is...
The game's up, fellas. 2 police units are on the way here, and I know you're unarmed except for that machine.
How did you break the bolt in that door?
Oh, I picked the lock. Now the 3 of you...
Oh! He jerked his arm around, knocked a hole in the wall!
No, he slammed his body into that big storage tank. Benedict, what's he doing?
Can't control my limbs. There's something driving me berserk.
Keep out of his way, whatever he is!
At that moment, Steve's young friend Toby is on the roof of the warehouse.
I knew where to hide to keep from getting evacuated out of here, in one of the science labs at the high school. But then when a Geiger counter there started going crazy, I realized there was a radiation leak somewhere. I took the Geiger counter and it led me here. Now let's see. Yeah, it's coming from inside here all right. There's a broken skylight. Wonder what... Wow! Colonel Austin! The radiation leak must be wrecking the controls on his bionic limbs. I gotta get in and help him.
Toby climbs through the broken skylight into the warehouse and sees Steve along with the 2 terrorists and the scientist running around yelling wildly.
Get out of there!
He's headed for the van!
No, he's headed for the wall! He's blocking off the door!
Who wants out? There'll be police here in a moment!
Somebody sees me. Get this big steel forklift in front of the truck holding the reactor. Maybe we'll keep Colonel Austin from going crazy.
Can't control myself. Gotta keep crooks from getting away. Scare him, please. What's that?
The forklift! The kid over there is moving it!
He's got it right in front of the reactor! Hey, you kid! What do you think you're doing in here, you little...
I'll tell you what he's doing. He's giving me control of myself again.
Thanks for making him let go of me, Colonel Austin.
And thank you, Toby, for cutting off the radiation leak. Think the seconds these characters have got left to spend awake are numbered?
Let me out of here.
Oh, no, you don't.
That's it, Colonel. Give it to him good.
Freeze! Police! Get your... What happened here? Colonel Austin!
Oh, pardon the mess, officer. My maid only comes in once a week, you see.
As the terrorists file meekly off with the police, a team of technicians is dispatched to retrieve the lost nuclear reactor.
Well, Toby, you still want to be bionic?
You bet. I saw the way you mopped up those guys. If I could do that, there wouldn't be a kid in town could make me...
Toby, listen to me. What you saw in there was a man being forced to go berserk because there are parts of his body he wasn't born with that went out of control. Only your quick thinking and nerve made it possible for my not being like that still. Understand what I'm saying?
I guess so, but...
What I'm saying is maybe you're worth a lot more than $6 million. The way you are.
A crisp autumn morning at Langley Air Force Base, where there seems to be no sign of life except for a black limousine speeding over the deserted runways. And in the back seat sits a grim General Hickman, the commanding officer of Langley. And next to him, none other than Oscar Goldman.
Is the evacuation complete, General?
Complete, Goldman. All my men are off the base, but I don't like it. Still, you were right. No sense risking their lives against something we don't know how to fight. The mobile phone.
I'll take it. Goldman here. Well, keep searching the base until you locate him. Austin hasn't checked out, so I know he's on the ground somewhere. We need him desperately. Where's the super tank now, General?
Still advancing from the south gate and demolished. None of our minefields or heavy artillery could even put a dent into it. Who would have thought an enemy tank, for God's sake, could actually be smuggled over to invade a U.S. Air Force base?
It's already happened, General, and it isn't difficult to figure out what its target is.
Yes, our new rocket sled installation. If it's destroyed, our research in ion propulsion will be set back for months, maybe even years.
Giving our adversary across the sea the jump they'll need to finish their system first. And I'm afraid they'll succeed if we can't find Steve Austin in time.
But at that very moment, elsewhere on the base, a shimmering shape suddenly appears out of thin air. A shape that takes on human form, finally crystallizing into focus, revealing itself to be none other than Steve Austin. But even though he indeed looks like Steve Austin, the thoughts coming from within are someone else's.
So this is 1976. It appears my teleportational coordinates were accurate. I recognize the landmarks of Langley Airfield from all the visual research tapes I've studied. It's just as archaic as I imagined.
Steve, there you are. We've been looking all over the base for you.
That man is Oscar Goldman. My studies indicated he was Steve Austin's friend and superior. Therefore, for appearances, I must do as he says.
Don't just stand there. Get in. We don't have a second to lose.
As the limousine quickly accelerates across the evacuated base, Oscar Goldman outlines the crisis at hand.
And so our rocket sled has to be protected at all costs. All costs, you understand?
And there's the super tank, gentlemen, coming up on us at 3 o'clock. Look at that thing. A soldier's nightmare.
Do you think you can handle it, Steve?
Child's play. Nothing more than a crude vehicular unit equipped with elementary explosive armaments.
Steve, can you handle it?
No problem that I can surmise, Oscar. Shall I intercept the enemy now?
I wish you would, son. That tank is on a direct beeline with the rocket sled installation.
Go to it, pal.
Look, that blasted tank is turning to aim its turret gun directly at Austin. He doesn't have a prayer now.
Prayer has nothing to do with bionics, General.
But even as the huge barrel fires a massive explosive charge at his human adversary,
Look, he's jumping straight up, 30 feet into the air, letting the blast pass under him.
That's only for starters, General. Keep watching.
Incredible! Now he's landed on top of the tank, buckling in the armor-plated roof.
How's that for an encore? He's grabbed the barrel of the turret gun and is twisting it back like a giant pretzel.
Goldman, I'm amazed. Everything was said about bionics is true.
but without warning, the super tank pivots and halts, while its momentum hurls its unwanted passenger to the ground.
He's down!
Steve!
Mercilessly, the enemy turns and accelerates forward toward the sprawled, fallen figure.
Oh, my God, he's trying to run Austin down.
But before the tank can do just that, its potential victim suddenly springs to life and dashes around to the side of the killing machine, slamming his body up against it like a human battering ram, pushing until...
I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it. Your Bionic Man thinks on his feet, Goldman. A tank pushed over on its side is as helpless as a bug on its back.
Then I trust you'll never have any more doubts about the $6 million we spent on Colonel Austin, will you, General?
You've got my word on that, Goldman. I never saw anything like him in action.
But as the limousine pulls up to the helpless tank, and Oscar and the General step out.
That's odd. Where the blazes did Austin go? I want to congratulate him.
Must be around somewhere. Maybe he's phoning for reinforcements.
Then I'll take a look for him in that bunker.
But no sooner has the General left the scene when...
Oscar, what's all the commotion?
There you are. What's the big idea sneaking up behind me?
What are you talking about? And where did that mean-looking tank come from?
Hey, pal, this is no time for a sense of humor.
Do I look like I'm joking? What's going on?
Good God, you really don't know, do you? You mean you didn't overturn that tank?
No way. For the past hour, I've been conducting inspections in the underground bunkers. I only came up a few minutes ago to find the base deserted. What I want to know is, what did I miss?
You missed seeing yourself in action, pal. There was another Steve Austin here, and he performed bionically just as well as you. And more than likely, he's still at large somewhere in the space.
It is several hours later that we rejoin the elusive Steve 2, concealing himself in the confines of a narrow alley between two concrete bunkers, as his identical counterpart passes by.
The real Steve Austin has been methodically searching the base for hours now in an attempt to find me. And with his bionic eyesight, no doubt he eventually will. So it is better that I find him.
Suddenly, Steve 2 dashes out from between the bunkers, only to come face to face with his own image.
Steve Austin, allow me to introduce myself. Good grief, Oscar was right. You really are my double. In appearance, yes, but I assure you I am not bionic. But the way you handled that tank. I merely simulated your bionic feats with the use of a portable biopower pack I'm wearing under my clothes. It boosts my own strength and other physical capabilities to a level equal to yours. But such a device would be far beyond any technology on Earth. Beyond the Earth 1976, but not where I come from. The Earth of 2976. You see, I have journeyed to your time era from the far future. We have to go somewhere and talk. But if anyone sees two Steve Austins together... I have an idea. Why don't we use our respective abilities to run around the perimeter of the base so fast that we'll only be blurs to any onlookers who see us? Good thinking, Steve.
Almost in perfect unison, identical pairs of legs start pumping up and down like pistons as the two identical astronauts begin their bionic run.
I can't believe you are really a double of me. And your name's really Steve Austin. The odds of probability, Austin. Down through the countless generations that followed you, it was inevitable that someone would eventually have your name and features. It's just simple mathematics. Simple to you, maybe, but now that you're here, what do you want? A very simple favor. I merely want to do a job for you, Colonel Austin. According to our historical records, you are destined to pilot your government's experimental rocket sled tomorrow. Am I correct? So far. Keep talking. In my era, mankind is dedicated to helping one another. To help another is the only justification for our existence. Selfishness has not existed for centuries. That's good to know. When a person in my era locates his ancestral double in time, it is his duty to travel back in time and help his double through a key event in his life. The event I've chosen to assist you in is your historic rocket sled ride. And if you don't get to fulfill this mission, then I must return to my own era in shame, branded forever as a disgrace and a failure.
And as their blurred bionic run comes to an end in front of a large hangar at the far end of the base,
I'm not due to pilot the sled until 1800 hours tomorrow. In the meantime, you can spend the night in this empty hangar. Does this mean you'll let me perform my mission and fulfill my destiny? Seems to be both of our destinies, doesn't it? I'll think it over tonight. Let you know my decision in the morning. I cannot ask you to be any fairer than that. I'll see you in the morning, then.
but as the real Steve Austin leaves, he would be shocked by the grim thoughts running through his double's mind.
I could only tell Steve Austin part of the truth. History decrees he will ride that sled tomorrow, but it also decrees he will perish when the sled malfunctions and explodes in use. I could not tell him that it is my duty to take his seat on that sled and die in his place. From what I've studied of my ancestral double's courageous feats, he would try and stop me from boarding this sled. And this I cannot allow. The rule of history must not be changed.
The next morning, after a night of heavy deliberation, Steve Austin once again arrives at the hangar and enters.
Steve 2, it's me, Austin. I've made up my mind about...
With no warning at all, Steve Austin is sent reeling backward by a pair of super-strong feet that ram into his back like jet-powered pile drivers.
I am sorry, Steve Austin, but regardless of what your decision was, I am the Steve Austin who is riding that sled. I say we should talk it over first. Maybe...
Again, the man from the future attacks, this time swiping Steve with a clamped double fist that sends him hurtling through a wall.
There must be no doubt. I am riding the sled. It is my destiny.
The man from the future charges a third time, but he is totally unprepared for the bionic fist that unexpectedly lashes out into his oncoming bulk. Seizing the advantage, Steve Austin lunges forward to grapple his counterpart from the future until they've latched onto each other in a vicious struggle. So fast-moving and frantic, it is impossible to tell which Steve Austin is which. Until only one Steve Austin remains standing. But which one? It is nearly an hour later as the final countdown reaches its last stages. And Oscar Goldman, General Hickman, and others watch the revving rocket sled from the mission control bunker.
Let's hope the ion engine is functioning correctly this time.
With Steve Austin at the controls, I can assure you the engine is in expert hands.
After what I saw Austin do yesterday, I can't argue with that.
Could I have that mic, Corporal? Thank you. Steve, I know you're not relayed to answer, but good luck. We'll see you at the end of the run.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Look at it go. Accelerating even faster than we hoped. It will be breaking the sound barrier in another... Good God, it exploded when it hit Mach 1!
Steve! Steve!
Later in Oscar Goldman's office.
Mr. Goldman, the reporters are still outside. They want some sort of official statement on Colonel Austin's death.
Get rid of them, Corporal. Tell them I'm not ready to make a statement yet. Tell them anything.
But the next moment, a shimmering shape appears in Oscar Goldman's office. A shape that takes human form to become Steve Austin.
Steve, is it really you?
It's me, Oscar. Not my double from the future. I'm back.
But I don't understand, pal. Back from where? We thought your body was vaporized by intense heat at the crash. It was you in the sled, wasn't it?
It was me, although I had the fight of my life, keeping my double from taking my place.
But how did you survive?
Simple. At the last split second before the crash, I faded away because I was teleported to the future by my double superiors.
You wound up in 2976? But where was the other Steve?
Back in the hangar where I left him solidly unconscious. That's what surprised my rescuers in the future. They thought they were bringing back their own Steve Austin. It turned out he made a mistake. In researching my life, he read the mistaken reports of my death that the reporters filed today, not realizing history actually decreed that I would survive. But I imagine they're telling him all that now, because he was transported back to his own era the same time they returned me to 1976.
Phew. It'll take me a while to sort all that out, but the important thing is you're back, safe and sound.
That's right, Oscar. Now all you've got to do is dream up a story for the reporters explaining how I miraculously survived that crash.
Wait, where are you going? You gotta help.
Not me, Oscar. After all my time traveling, I need a long nap. See you later, pal.
King Cider at all, Steve?
Cider. Valmaria, right? That's the king of that country who was in a plane that flew through an atomic blast, 20 years ago, huh?
I hope you know more about the place than that. You're going there as a goodwill gesture.
Goodwill? But that's a dictatorial monarchy, Oscar. There's more freedom in a jail cell than there is in Valmaria.
Then you do know more about the place. Actually, the king's daughter, Siler, is quite a fan of yours. Have a nice trip, Steve.
Colonel Steve Austin of the United States Air Force.
Welcome to Valmaria, Colonel Austin. My daughter, Princess Siler.
How do you do, Your Majesty? Princess?
Subjects, members of the royal court, our distinguished guest, Colonel Austin. I have an announcement to make. We have among us a man who has walked in space and on the surface of the moon. He has entered the realm of history and stands there among the kings and presidents of our century. It is my honor to announce that he will also stand, from this day on, at the side of my daughter as her husband and the heir to the glorious throne of Valmaria.
Hey, what do you mean? I can't get married to your daughter.
Excuse me, Colonel, but are you declining the hand of my daughter, the princess?
Am I? Yes, I'm declining. Of course I'm declining.
Take him out and shoot him.
What on earth?
No, Father. Oh, please, no.
Yes, my dear. Colonel, I must do this to spare the innocent sensibilities of my lovely daughter, whom you have so mercilessly devastated. To the stockade with him.
Come along, sir.
Oof. Get that hand off me. You too, fella. I'll go to the stockade with your men if you want, Sidor. But I won't be carried there. You can be sure the American government will have lots to say about my treatment here.
As you wish.
Your Highness?
God, would you please let me talk to the prisoner alone?
Of course, Your Highness. His Majesty your father has issued a solemn proclamation that his subjects obey your will as if it were His Majesty's own.
Thank you, God. Steve? Oh, Steve Austin, I cannot believe you are really here.
You better believe it. Your old man put me here.
No, I mean here in Valmaria. Oh, please consent to marry me, dear Steve. It's the only way my father will release you.
Princess, aren't you awfully young to be going around hunting for a husband?
I'm very advanced for my age. For any age, really. Didn't you wonder why my father was acting as he did?
I certainly did, but I figured once I got out of here, that was a problem for the diplomats. Hey, what's that noise?
What noise?
That noise. Like a mob or an army.
Mob? Army? The rebels. Oh, no. They're massing against us. They've been threatening for weeks, but I never thought they'd try to come. They'll storm the palace. They'll kill us all.
If you'll excuse me, Princess.
You're breaking the door off its hinges.
Looks as though I'll be making my exit ahead of schedule.
Hey, who goes there?
Was that a man? It went by at the speed of a locomotive.
In seconds, Steve reaches the palace and pushes the great door open.
Zydo, I want an explanation for this madness now, before that oncoming mob makes chopped meat out of you.
Austin, how did you get out of the stockade? How did you get past my guard?
From the sound of the goings-on at the palace gates, I'd say you've got more pressing things on your mind about now. How about that explanation, eh?
All right. She's upset now. She's out of my head. I can't control myself.
Control yourself? Who's out of your head?
My daughter, Siler. The atomic blast. You know about the atomic blast I was caught in 20 years ago? The one everyone thought I escaped from unhurt.
Thought? It did something to you?
It did something to my offspring. My wife died in childbirth, you know, and my little girl was amazingly intelligent almost from the moment of birth. More intelligent than most heads of state. What's more, she has some sort of mental link with me, and having a stronger mind than I have, she can make me do whatever she wants mentally. The atomic blast did that. She is the real ruler of Valmaria. She made me bring you here.
Well, sorry I can't stay and tell you how amazing that story is, King Zido. But I think your subjects have just broken into the palace.
They've broken in. They want to kill me. What do I...
Stay where you are and don't move. I'll be back. Promise.
Get Zido! The royal guard is helpless before us!
Quiet, everyone. Calm down. Hold it. You've got the palace. Now, what is it you want?
Freedom!
Liberty! Zido's head!
We've got the princess!
We want the king to sign this paper!
Princess? Where's the princess? What paper?
We will execute the princess and chase the king to the ends of the earth unless he signs this document.
Let me see this. Freedom of speech, of the press, freedom of religion, right to assemble, innocent until proven guilty. Sounds good to me. I'll talk to the king.
And signing that is the only way to save Sila.
That's the way I see it, Zidor.
Give me that pen. I'll put my name and seal on. Something's wrong. I can't bring my hand down to it. My daughter is controlling my mind again. She won't let me do it.
That irresponsible little brat. That means she's not upset at the moment, at least. I wonder what they're doing to...
Oh, wait. I'm freed again.
Something just happened to make your daughter alarmed and let you go. I hope I'm on time.
What are you rabble doing? Why are you hoisting up this cage?
If that American friend of yours does not return with the signed liberation document in the next few minutes, we are going to cut loose the cage you're in and let it and you fall into the well, 100 feet below the surface.
We may not have a few minutes. The rope holding her cage is weakening, going to break.
Oh, I'm starting to fall. Help me, someone. Steve! Oh, dear Steve! Save me!
The well below her has a heavy rock rim above ground level.
The rope broke. She's falling.
America, look how fast he's
Putting his body feet first into the wall around the well.
The rocks are falling across the mouth of the well.
It's closed. The well is closed down.
Princess, you all right? You didn't fall very far. Your cage fell on the rocks that just collapsed over the mouth of the well.
Yes, Steve. I'm just a little shaken.
Wait. Here it is. The document. I signed and sealed it. You can free the princess now. You can release her.
Zidor, the tyrant! I'll stop him. One bullet from this gun.
No!
Oh!
You assassin? Here, this'll take care of you.
Father! Oh, this is my fault. Father! Are you all right?
I think so. That bullet made a part in my hair.
More than just your hair, Your Majesty. You should have that grazed skull looked at.
Never mind me. Here! Here's your precious document, and here's freedom to do everything except abuse your freedoms. I see you're not stopping me from giving this to our people, daughter.
I wouldn't stop you, and I don't think I could anymore. You were grazed on the skull. Your mind is your own again, my father, and you are welcome to it.
As our people are welcome to their new free lives.
Tell me, Princess Sila, your father explained about your being able to control his mind because your genes were somehow changed by his atomic bomb accident. But did that bump on his head really end your ability to control him?
Oh, Steve, dear, you are perceptive, aren't you? Let's just say he won't have to worry about being his own man ever again.
Then something has changed. You've grown up a lot today, young lady.
I'll grow up a little more sometime, Steve. And maybe I'll see you again when I do.